exceed the billion marks. I want to thank you for the invitation to join such esteemed company, and I'm committed to help further and grow this relation that our two nations have nurtured. As Minister of Cabinet Affairs responsible to the management of everything associated with the Cabinet and ministerial committees, and working with the other ministries to implement the government's program and improve accountabilities. And prior to that, I was working in Bahrain Economic Development Board under the chairmanship of His Highness the Crown Prince. We were responsible to implement reform initiatives, economic reform initiatives to make Bahrain a better place for business and for living, as well as attracting foreign direct investment. I'm sure you all agree and know that Bahrain has seen a program of economic and political reform that has lasted for more than a decade. Liberalizing the business environment, widening freedoms in Bahrain, diversifying our economy away from gas and oil, and providing greater opportunity through investment in education and job creation for our young population. So during the last 10 years, we have achieved a lot. Our economy have expanded by 70%. The unemployment have dramatically reduced to 3.8%. Our non-oil export doubled. And we also introduced significant political rights were introduced, including the creation of parliament under universal suffrage. The goal was always to invest and empower our people in Bahrain, the most important asset we have, and as our neighbors always like to joke, our only asset. This evening, I will take this opportunity to give you more detail about what happened in Bahrain. The current environment, and this current environment was very easy for people, or some people, to overlook the achievement that we have made as a nation during the last 10 years. Unlike other countries in the region that have led the news in this extraordinary year, ours is not a story of political or economic stagnation leading to widespread disenfranchisement, nor it is a story of widespread popular revolt. Only recently, Bahrain was viewed by many as the poster child for liberal reform in the region. For years, there wasn't a US speech that did not reference Bahrain as the model of the Arab reform. Yet, frustratingly, in the space of a few weeks, we went from model reformer to pariah nation. The fact is, Bahrain's fundamentals are still intact. We are still committed to the values and the principle of reform, of opening up, of a greater transparency, of a greater accountability, and making life better for all Bahrainis. As they say, never waste a good crisis. We should aim for sustainable evolution, not destructive revolution. There are those who want to throw everything out and start completely anew, including all of those institutions that have served us so well over the last decade. It means losing a very significant progress of the last decade. This so-called revolution is in no one's interest, not for the people in Bahrain or the wider region, and also not for those with an interest in regional stability. Bahrain is committed to continue down the path of reform that began a decade ago under the leadership of His Majesty the King. We must and we will accelerate the pace of growth and reform in order to meet the needs of all Bahrainis. It has been a challenging year, as you all know. But like many things in life, the situation is not as black and white as has been portrayed. With that in mind, I wanted to address some misconceptions about what has occurred in Bahrain. Firstly, it has been said that Bahrain form part of the wider Arab Spring narrative, one of which squarely places the people against the government. That suggests revolution as the answer against an oppressive government who had not had the people's interest in mind. This was the easy explanation, one that played well to popular sentiment. Yes, the phenomena of the Arab Spring did provide a catalyst to protest in Bahrain, but events in Bahrain had the opposite effect. Bahrain's version of the Arab Spring did not unite the society against government. Instead, it polarized the two largest sections of society against one another, right along sectarian lines. Through His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, Bahrain sought to initiate a sincere and comprehensive dialogue in February to resolve all issues. Unfortunately, the dialogue was rejected by the opposition, and some with extreme views escalated the situation to the point of a breakdown in law and order. The protest served to divide the country rather than unite society towards a single cause. This leads to another mischaracterization, which labels Bahrain as an overwhelmingly Shia country who all oppose the government. The reality is that Bahrain has a truly pluralistic society. What is less well understood is that each group, both Shia and Sunni, represents a large segment of the population. A year ago, we did not think in those terms. We were not Sunni, not Shia, or Christian, or Jewish, or Hindu, for that matter. We were Bahraini first. Many of you know that in Bahrain, we were unique in the Gulf for having mosques next to churches, temples, and even synagogues. This unfortunate sectarian polarization has now silenced the moderate majority, which is the Bahrain that you all know, and the Bahrain that we have always been very proud of. If we are to move forward, it is essential that we stop talking at each other and begin speaking to one another. And this will take compromise on all sides. There are still many in Bahrain who do not yet accept that their views do not represent the views of all Bahrainis, and who also do not accept our place within the region. And therefore we must work together toward a common ground, and that is exactly what our government is trying to do today. To that end, and in an unprecedented move, His Majesty the King invited, as you stated, Minister, independent commission of inquiry to look at events, assess all the actions, and provide recommendation to ensure we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. These are fully independent, external, international experts who will have interviewed thousands, examined the evidence, and evaluated the situation systematically, including the allegations surrounding human rights violations. The report will be released by the end of this month, by 23rd of November, and we all look forward to it because we hope it will be a first step for all of us to acknowledge that we need to move away from having multiple narratives toward a single narrative, a single set of facts to what happened and how we can move forward. From this, we can focus on constructively moving forward on how best to continue Bahrain's progress, Bahrain's reform story, not looking backward. Mistakes have been made by all sides during the recent period, and lessons are being learned, and with the imminent report of the Independent Commission, we can ensure that we take necessary actions to right any wrongs and continue His Majesty's directive to guide Bahrain toward further sustainable reform. And the word sustainable is important here. in a way that addresses the views of all stakeholders in the society. When looking at Bahrain and the recent events, as you all know, it is important for the world to remember that Bahrain's culture, history, and geopolitics exist within the Arab Gulf rather than a Western context. When see through this lens, Bahrain's undoubtedly been one of the most reformist and progressive nations across the Middle East. Within Bahrain, we need to respect that there is a large segment of the population that does not want to throw out the culture we have always had. We cannot deny this, and therefore we must find a system that works within this context. We must respect the fact that Bahrain will always be part of the Arab Gulf, and this means that while we will continue our path as a progressive nation, we also must acknowledge the very real complexity that exists in our part of the world. Of course, we all want more democracy, more transparency, more accountability, more productivity, which will lead to more stability and prosperity for all. But despite calls by all, we need to manage expectations. Bahrain cannot, and indeed, for the sake of stability, should not move into a UK-style democracy overnight. The process of a political reform for any nation is a journey. If we are to achieve political reform in a realistic, responsible, and peaceful manner, then we must go down this path in full recognition of the regional, socio, cultural, and economic reality that surround us. We can start to address the situation by advancing civil reforms. We can enhance equality by improving access to jobs, housing, educational opportunities. This will in turn make addressing political reform much more feasible. Building on the proposed reform developed through the summer national dialogues, which called for a strengthening parliaments and improved accountability and giving parliaments direct scrutiny over governments. This is a positive step in the right direction. The solution, as I said, lies in compromise, in the genuine recognition that Bahrain has been and always will be a multi-plural society, and it is one that is committed to reform to everyone's benefit. So in conclusion, you all know that Bahrain is a young, developing democracy. Not only are our elected officials learning how to more effectively represent their constituents and introduce reform through constructive debate and legislation, but also our people learning about the responsibility that comes with living in a more democratic society. It's a process. Our commitment to this process of reform and development remains steadfast, and we will find the model that works sustainably and effectively for Bahrain and for Bahrainis. At the end, I want to thank you for your long-standing friendship, and it is in difficult time that we truly appreciate our friends. Thank you for your long-standing relationship for Bahrain, and we are grateful for your wise counsel, for your enduring support, and for your dear friendship. Let's propose a toast to the health of the guests here today. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. very much.
Thank you.
Please don't go away while I escort Mr. Bird out.
I'm going to the tower. But,